Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. We're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and of course YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, Election Day, and we are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique and in LGBTQ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ plus community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
Well, let's begin by welcoming anchor Jamaal L. Starks. Jamaal is a rare Miami native, also known affectionately as Porcelain. As a spiritual wellness consultant, he is an active member of the yogi community through the first and only Queer Yoga Club Miami. He is positioned as the vice president of Impulse Chapter of Miami, a member of the ballroom community through the House of Gorgeous Gucci, a professional background boasting a 16-year aviation career that led him to oversee the flight operations of 2 major airlines, and a 17-year HIV plus thriver. He's dedicated himself to lead by example that Black queer individuals are inherently worthy of living safe, healthy, and abundantly thriving lives without social conditioning. Welcome, Jamaal.
Thank you, Al. And if you are Black and queer and want to live without social conditioning, make sure you go out and vote. Make sure today you are seeing the polls today. Also, this Saturday, come join us at a bike ride on Fort Lauderdale Beach with my friends KJ and Pierre. Let's welcome anchor Glen Weinzimer. Glen is the founder of the Smart Ride, an annual 2-day, 165-mile bicycle ride from Miami to Key West. The Smart Ride has raised and returned over $13.9 million to AIDS HIV service organizations across Florida in the last 18 years. Glen also owns Bona Italian restaurant in the heart of Wilton Manors. Bona Italian holds weekly Give Back Mondays. In the past 4.5 years, Bona has raised and returned over $50,000 to help local organizations meet their mission. Let's welcome Glen.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Let's move on and let's welcome anchor Dr. Bobby Huen. Dr. Bobby Huen is the owner and principal mediator of BH Conflict Resolution Services. As a certified civil and family mediator, Bobby helps individuals, families, and businesses resolve their legal disputes nationwide. Outside of work, Bobby is a gamer, a Lego builder, a foodie, and an art collector. He is always open to chat if you see him on the drive. Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you, Glenn. And thank you for the introduction. Let's welcome anchor AJ Stone. AJ is a foodie, comedy writer, and social media slut. and the co-founder of bearslooking.com. He may be big and burly, but don't be fooled. He is a softie and a goody two-shoes. Find him online at Bear of AJ. Good evening, AJ.
Thank you so much. You know, I didn't win that Powerball last night, but if you're lucky, I have 2 right here you could play with. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, Voting Day.
Yeah,
Well,
sure you vote.
Let's begin by queering up South Florida and Florida. History made as Florida's governor and Senate candidates do combined final election eve campaign event for the LGBTQ plus community. Yesterday, on the eve of the election day, Queer News Tonight was present at a historic gathering of political candidates and personalities. We broadcast Queer News Tonight last night on the site. Celebrity speakers included Malcolm D. Lee, the director of Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, Girls Trip, and Space Jam: A New Legacy, as well as Haitian comedian Success Jr. On hand to speak were a slew of politicians, including Florida Representative Marie Woodson, who introduced Florida gubernatorial candidate Charlie Crist, Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture, Nikki Fried, and U.S. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who introduced candidate for U.S. Senate, Val Demings. Broward is a very important area for Democrats today in today's election, as Commissioner Fried stated in her speech, saying, quote, 2018, you came through. You came through and elected the first statewide elected Democrat in almost 2 decades. You came through to make sure every ballot was counted. And at the end of the 2 long weeks of a recount, we were able to win by 6,753 votes because of Broward County. So we're asking Broward to do it again, end quote. And remember that 6,700 total was out of 8 million. Last night, as we did this historic broadcast of Queer News Tonight at the Manor Complex on Wilton Drive. It really was unique in all of America. Last night, regardless of the outcome, is historic because it's the first time we've ever seen the 2 major candidates of a state election, governor and U.S. Senate, come on the final night of the final joint effort of a campaign to come to its final conclusion before voting begins, which is today, and do it in a principally LGBTQ community. And in many of the conversations, Nikki Fried, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, of course, Val Demings and Charlie Crist, the conversation is how important the LGBTQ community was to them philosophically in their belief of support of the LGBTQ community, and also the importance of hoping to be the tip over to ensure that the LGBTQ community got out to vote today. At this hour, we don't know if that's what happened, but last night was certainly historic in their efforts in support of our LGBTQ community. Never seen in West Hollywood, never seen in San Francisco, never seen in Greenwich Village, what we saw in Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale last night.
But Al, do you think it made sense to be in a community that had probably already voted, that was already going to go Democrat if it was going to go Democrat as the last stand? Hillary Clinton did that during her presidential run, and I remember being in the room and everyone I knew had already voted. And where the need really is in areas where there is still a chance of winning some folks over. And I think it's great that they chose the LGBTQ community to be in our community for their last debate, but I wonder whether that was wasting good energy that could have gone to maybe change a few more votes. We just talked about the last election only won by over 6,000. That's just a handful of people out of several million.
Well, to your question, the answer is we don't know yet.
Right.
It's 8 p.m. The polls have closed in Florida, and they're counting the votes. What is at play, I think, at your question is, did the LGBTQ community turn out? The people in the room, interestingly, last night, we talked about this at dinner, had dinner at Bona. Many of us had dinner at Bona after this event. The room was principally filled not with LGBT, on Wilton Drive.
Wow.
How did that happen? Their efforts are designed to ring the bell to LGBT, have LGBT leaders, advocates, activists say this is important, get out and vote. I don't know. It's, sitting now at 8:09 p.m. here on Tuesday night, we're nervous about what we're getting ready to see.
Part of campaigning, getting out the vote is always important. And, the get out the vote mechanism might actually save us in the Senate, especially in certain states where people are coming out to support their candidate. People can simply stay home. Historically, midterm elections are generally low turnout elections.
Right.
I mean,
this year seems to be an exception to that because of what's on the ballot right now.
But one last thought to it, because we're going to talk about this election and voting today many times and through our stories that we're doing. The one soundbite that I want to put back on the table is the story here is not whether they win or not. The story is that all of them came together on Wilton Drive in the middle of the LGBTQ community in this historic year of anti-LGBTism from Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio. Remember Marco Rubio's comment of going, what a tremendous waste of time gay marriage is. All of these candidates come together united in a LGBTQ community. We're showing you some of the images from last night, come together to say, oh, no, LGBT is important. Win or lose, this is a great springboard for the next 2 years in terms of our community.
Yeah. Well, let's queer up USA View. Which issue will win the election? Economy versus culture wars. President Biden said over the weekend leading to the midterm elections that this was one of the most important of his lifetime. He suggested that the results would affect Americans for decades. If true, the consequences to the LGBTQ plus community are front and center. A record $17 billion has been spent on this election cycle. Today, the LGBTQ plus community and all of America are voting. The question will be, who got it right? The strategies of the Democrats and GOP have been very different. Democrats have largely focused on cultural issues, including abortion, schools, trans health care, drag queens, woke labels, democracy, and more. The GOP has largely focused on the negatives on those issues, but dramatically on their argued failures of President Biden on the economy. The question will be whether these cultural war issues will be enough for LGBTQ and Democrats to hold on to the Senate and House. Or will the issues on economy, inflation, and where Americans perceive we are headed outweigh those cultural war issues? To add to Democrats' problems is the perception of progressives that are argued are radical and soft on crime and don't care about spending or the economy. At play today in voting is, did we lose white women? Did the progressives kill us? British Prime Minister Tony Blair once said, quote, "If you lose people on culture, they think you're radical on culture. They stop listening to you on economics," end quote. Tomorrow, we will be Wednesday morning quarterbacking who got it right. But two facts seem to be clear. Polls show that 80% of both parties' voters say they are casting ballots out of anger for the other side. 30 years ago this week, Clinton advisor James Carville said in helping to defeat President George Bush by famously saying, "It's the economy, stupid." Those same polls today say the number one issue, 47% believe economic issues are the most important decision in this election. Only 8% say it's abortion. Only 2% say it's LGBTQ and other rights. Tonight, we consider the possibility we lose because they are angrier. And it's still about the economy, stupid. And here we go back to what we discussed probably about a month or two ago, Al, that I said it all comes down to money when it comes down to these elections and what people really care about. It's about the economy, stupid.
Yeah, it's about the
But
economy.
on the other hand, the question is, we got to ask ourselves, despite the doom and gloom from Tucker Carlson and company, is the economy that bad? I mean, wages are going up, record low unemployment at the moment, 3.5% or 3.7%. We are, aside from inflation, which is driven by increased wages.
You know, and I agree with everything that you just said, but you know, the shame of what you just said is most of the Democratic candidates didn't say that. And they didn't say it over and over and over again. They didn't make fun and poke Ron DeSantis right in the eye to say, when you had a $20 billion surplus, it was because President Joe Biden, through the federal protection programs, allowed billions of dollars into the state of Florida that you got to use for all kinds of things that you didn't use taxation, Florida taxes on, and therefore created this gigantic surplus. And there was nobody saying that over and over and over again. So even if what you just said is true, it's still about the economy, stupid, and they missed those opportunities. You know, and I think we're going to Wednesday morning quarterback that issue.
It's so funny too, because on paper, inflation is there, yes, but unemployment might be at a low, raise, you know, rates are climbing in terms of
interest rates.
Or the number, even hourly wages that people are earning. But then you see people who are working 2, 3, maybe even 4 part-time jobs to help sustain their family, you know, and when you're hungry, you vote a certain way.
But that is true even before the pandemic.
Of course.
I mean, we have switched. We used to talk about careers. Now we talk about gigs. Or now we talk about, you know, we do FYOPs at the same time to make ends meet.
I think the big issue is, how is it possible when we have record low unemployment, all of the conversation about the stock market, Wall Street's doing fine. The numbers are historically high. Even post-Trump, they're historically high. They're not as high as they were a year ago, but post-Trump, they're historically high. How is it possible that the Democrats have gotten through this cycle without basically smashing them in the face of going, wait, all we want to do is talk about economy because we're going to win on this issue? No one, I don't think, here at the table would say they have done a great job of doing that. And while we appreciate all of the issues that relate to us and the embracement of LGBT, last night included, it's not the winning issue. No. It's clear. 8% of abortion is the winning issue. 2% on LGBT rights think it's the winning issue. 47% say it's the economy, stupid.
And I want to go back to that question that was in the story. What about white women? Where are white women in the voting polls, and where are they on the issues? And for me, they've always failed. LGBT, black people, they've always failed us. They've always hopped on our bandwagon and always failed us. But where are they in this midterm election, and where is their voice?
Yeah, we're going to find that out tomorrow in the suburbs of Philadelphia. We're going to find out and talk about it tomorrow.
Okay, let's move on and let's queer up health. Here's your final chance for Smart Ride 19. The 2-day Smart Ride is around the corner. Get ready to cycle for 165 miles from Miami to Key West. The event is held every November, and this year it is on November 18th and 19th. The Southernmost HIV/AIDS Ride, aka the Smart Ride, started in 2003 with a vision of giving back 100% of every dollar its participants raised to AIDS service organizations throughout Florida. The Smart Ride is the second largest AIDS bicycle ride in the country and the only one of its size to give back 100% of every dollar raised. Registering and participating in the Smart Ride 19 costs $135, which includes your food and your housing over that period. November 18th, we will overnight at a destination, and food and snacks will be available also on the route. In addition, the organizers ask participants to commit to fundraising $1,250. That commitment will help to support 6 benefiting agencies. The registration fees help to cover the operating costs for the Smart Ride. The Smart Ride is produced by TSR Adventures, Inc., a tax-exempt nonprofit organization. The events are organized to assemble and sustain a group of thoughtful, committed citizens to build relationships and raise funds to positively affect the lives of people whom the citizens may have never met, and in so doing challenge themselves to stretch the limits of what they thought they could do as an individual. Registration for the ride is open and can be done via SmartRide's official website. The start location of the ride will be the University of Miami, and ride out will be at 6:41 a.m. as the sun rises. I had to throw that in there because I know for sure what time the sun rises that day. I'm obviously part of Smart Ride, so we're super excited about it. We crossed the $780,000 mark yesterday. We still have like 6 days to get to the $1 million mark, and our community has been very resilient in doing that. So I do foresee that we will get close, if not hit $1 million this year, which will take us into our 20th anniversary. And at that point, we've internally already made a commitment for $2 million in 20.
The soundbite that I just heard, by the way, that this will tumble into the 20th anniversary next year. Translation: Glen is old. That's what I just heard.
Translation: Glen is very old.
Very old.
Glen will get on a bike just as fast as you do.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, breaking news, I'm going on the Smart Ride. But now I'm not riding. I'm not riding. I'm going to be assigned as a volunteer. I believe I've been assigned to latrine detail and
cleaning latrine detail.
Latrine
See, that's funny because I was going to volunteer for anybody who wants to participate in massage. My place in Wilton.
So funny you should mention that. We are short massage therapists.
Well, my hands are ready.
Well, your hands I can't see, so I don't want to know what they're doing. But you only have 4 massage therapists, and we need
Glenn,
like
I want to come back to that final couple of $100,000 challenge that you've just done over the next 9-10 days. How somebody wants to help Smart Ride now? What do they do?
They would go to our website, click on the donate button. You don't have to know someone in the right to be able to make a general donation and help us get to that $1 million mark. Like I said, our community has always been very resilient, and a lot of our money is raised within the last 4 weeks of the event. So in the last 4 weeks, I think we put in over $300,000 is accumulated, and we're seeing a lot of money coming in through Facebook as well. So I'm hoping that there's a big drop that'll come in the next day or so of another like 25,000.
And your title, you're a volunteer, but you're the guy. You're executive director. Is that the title?
Founder is the title that I. Nicer crown.
Yes. Okay. All right. And I've got other jokes, but I won't do them because I'm supporting Smart Ride.
And also because I'll have a comeback.
Yes, that too. So this must be, it's election. You're running a business at Bona. You're so involved in the community. You just must be completely wiped approaching Smart Ride.
I am completely wiped, but you're running on adrenaline at this point. I mean, it is all about getting to the finish to get everyone safely from Miami to Key West. That to me is the most important thing. It's more important than the extra money we raise as long as we can keep every rider and every volunteer safe, riding on our open road to Key West. We don't block the roads, we don't close them. And this will be our 19th year. So we've got a really good track record, and we've got a lot of very passionate people. We have a motorcycle team that follows the riders, and they're like our first responders. We travel with a full medical team. We'll have 48 physicians or nurses on the event.
48 doctors and nurses.
Can Community Health has pulled it from all over the state.
Wow.
And we have Dr. Barnett will be leading it. Dr. Sessions has been on it before. We have some from Midland Local here in Wilton Manors or Oakland Park. So we've got a really great team of people there to do nothing but support the participants and make sure that they get safely.
Glenn, I ask you about You Must Be Wiped because just in one last thought of helping us understand, as founder, executive director, you're working for free. 19 years of this, you have a challenge of a couple $100,000 in this last 10 days to get to the $1 million. You hope you do. It's a success even if you don't. Help us the important soundbite of Smart Ride is 100% of my donation. I go in and make a donation today for Smart Ride. 100% of my donation goes to services in HIV community. Why is that important?
So we're still looking at, especially in the state of Florida, new cases of HIV higher than almost anywhere else in the country. We see a huge increase in that in the minority community, in the African American community, and the Latin community. They're much more at risk of getting, if we look at economics, Economics plays a role in it. Stable housing plays a role in it. The sense of invincibility in our youth. The group that getting infected at the highest rate right now is 13 to 23-year-olds, which shocks most people because we think, their kids are taking their PrEP and stuff like that. But that's where we're seeing the largest growth. And then within that 13 to 23-year-old period or grouping, you're looking at minorities with the highest because of stigma. There's just so many factors that play into it, and economics is a huge one.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate we live in a community where you can be you. And in some ways that's really good, and in some ways that probably also hurts us with this, because when you're younger, you think you can do anything,
You're invincible.
and you believe you can take one pill and you'll be fine. We've talked about this before. I take 13 pills before I go to bed. I was diagnosed, and I read your thing. I was diagnosed 28 years ago. And at that point we had AZT, and that was it. And they told my parents I had 10 days to live. So that was a lot to take on, and to there's a sense of responsibility, I feel, for me, that where I made it and others didn't, to be able to step up and try to make it better for other people.
Yeah.
So
it's just a reminder before we move on to Bobby. It's just a reminder. The Smart Ride is going to come around at the end of next weekend, next Friday and Saturday. And the least thing that we can do is to go on that website and make a donation. That's the least thing you can do, because you're seeing Glenn sitting in front of you and hundreds of people that are volunteering, and they're working their asses off to make this happen because it's so important. So the least you can do is to go onto the website and make a donation. That's all they're asking to do. Right. That's all.
And I just want to say, I do get compensated. I know you said free. I just want to make sure that I'm not lying about that. I have been able to take something, thanks to our sponsors and stuff, the last several years. For the first 9 years, I did not take anything, but we're in a better position financially that we're able to compensate a couple of people.
Yeah. Smart Ride is approaching $15 million for the community. It's unparalleled in terms of what they've done. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to clean latrines in the Florida Keys next weekend.
And we're still having trouble finding gloves that'll fit you. So I apologize.
He's so hateful.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Al. So next up, let's queer up some trans rights. LGBTQ plus raise red flag over Dave Chappelle's hosting SNL next week. Fans of Saturday Night Live are criticizing the show after it announced over the weekend that Dave Chappelle should be the guest host for its November 12th episode. Chappelle has become infamous for his anti-trans views in the past year. In his 2021 Netflix special, The Closer, the comedians defended J.K. Rowling for her frequent transphobic comments and described himself as a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist. The special received widespread criticism and led to Netflix employees staging a walkout in protest. After SNL announced that Chappelle would be the show's next guest host, fans quickly blasted the show on Twitter. The comments on the original tweet were flooded with messages of Don Cheadle wearing a Protect Trans Kids t-shirt during his February 2019 appearance on the show. Another user replied with a pic of cast member Cicely Strong wearing a Trans Rights are Human Rights t-shirt during Scarlett Johansson's March 2017 appearance. I hope cast members will boycott this, they commented. Many fans also pointed out that the show only recently announced its first ever non-binary cast member, Molly Kearney. One user tweeted, quote, "Wonder how SNL's first non-binary cast member this season must feel about them platforming Dave Chappelle's next week," end quote. Well, I don't know, maybe ratings? Controversy always generates ratings. I mean, the question is whether Dave Chappelle is going to stick his foot in his mouth on national television again. And the chances are it's likely.
I was going to say, it's very likely.
Chances are very, very likely because
away.
he is going to thrive on this attention.
Yeah, he doesn't back down from anything that he says or what he does. And it was news to me that he supported J.K. Rowling. That was actually news to me. I've only seen the comedy special in which he continues.
Oh, what did you think of it?
Mixed feelings about the trans case that he was making on there. I see where he was going, but it needs to be, like, he needs to sit down with true trans people and actually open his mind and listen, because I can see his process, but his process just isn't taking him there, like where he needs to be. But now that I see that he supports J.K. Rowling's and calls himself a TERF, I'm like, okay, this is just like, you're just committed to not understanding.
He chose the label, the TERF label, as like
a branding
man, as a branding. I'm going to poke you in the eye.
Right, you're committed to not understanding.
It's
at
almost
this point.
it's almost like a badge of honor for TERFs, for people who are anti-trans. The word TERF, the term TERF, is now basically a badge of honor. Proudly transphobic.
You know, before we move on to AJ, one final thought to where we are versus the special, the Netflix special. You know, it's time for us to move on of Dave Chappelle, because protest for the simple rejection of Dave Chappelle is of no value. We either have to continue to educate people that would be fans of Dave Chappelle and explain and continue to educate the value of trans, but boycott in this instance is not going to work and not going to be successful. Proof of that is in our own community. Dave Chappelle is coming to the Hard Rock Live. They announced a show. I believe one day later, they announced the second show because the first was sold out. 2 days later, they announced a third show. He will have the first show ever in history since Hard Rock Live has existed in South Florida to have 3 shows, which are going to be sold out.
Yeah, so at this point, we need to redirect our energy.
Yeah, our energy has to be re-educated of what we want to do constructively. Just saying no, Dave Chappelle, is not a successful strategy.
And then we're leaving other things on the table.
Right.
Well, let's go ahead and queer up technology. Fears grow that Elon Musk and Twitter will become the next Fox News. New Twitter owner Elon Musk tweeted Monday encouraging independent-minded voters to vote Republican, marking a major departure for leaders of social media companies who typically steer clear of partisan political advocacy. He tweeted, quote, "Shared power curbs the worst excesses of both parties. Therefore, I recommend voting for a Republican Congress, given that the presidency is Democratic," end quote. Across Asia, activists, journalists, and Twitter users plugged into human rights and social justice issues are worried about how the social media platform will change under the leadership of the world's richest man. For critics, the concerns range from questions about Musk's ideological leanings and his business interests in countries like China to doubts about his understanding of the complexities of social media. The Tesla founder, a self-described free speech absolutionist who has accused Twitter of exhibiting left-wing bias, has pledged to reshape moderating policies on the platform to encourage the airing and debate of a wider spectrum of views. According to the former legal counsel Shannon Raj Singh, Musk set in motion a radical restructuring of the company by firing about half of Twitter's 7,500 employees, including the entire human rights team. In countries like Myanmar, where Twitter has played an important role in sharing information since a military coup in 2021, Musk's takeover has prompted anxiety and concerns. You know, this whole thing is going about really, really sloppily. When he pitched the bid to buy Twitter, he kind of over budgeted, and then there was drama with the amount that he would have to pay, and he backtracked on that. And now we're finding out because of lawsuits with the amount of people that he decided to fire, he's hiring them back because you can't fire that many people in a certain states without repercussions. So it's like, yeah, we're worried about his business plan. We're worried about his social media interaction. It's like, who is his team that he's helping guiding him with these kind of misfirings?
See, the problem with him and many others like him is that they scream free speech, free speech, free speech, but they don't understand the consequences of such. Free speech does not mean freedom from consequences. When you tweet stupid stuff, your advertisers are going to leave you. When you tell people that you're about to, and also I want to see concrete proof of this quote unquote leftist bias on Twitter. Where is it? Because I still see all the Fox News personalities. I still see the, Marjorie Taylor Greene is on there, alongside with many other radical, hate-spewing, racist, homophobic, transphobic personality on Twitter. So where's this left-wing bias, Elon?
Elon made a lot of money being a good business person, and that's where he should have stayed. Right. I think we all looked up to him for Tesla and the innovations he was doing. But once he got into making his personal radical direction known, he's changed the whole of everything for his future. I don't know what that'll happen, whether he'll just go stronger with Twitter or where that's going to end up. But I don't think it was a good idea for him to take over that.
I didn't expect anything better from somebody who descended from ancestors who got their privilege from apartheid in South Africa. I really have never liked Elon Musk, his grandfather. I've never liked any of them. They privileged and they raped and pillaged South Africa. They got their name off of apartheid. And you expect these people to lead, this same descendant to lead, and now he's the richest person in the world. You expect him to lead social media on some type of cause. I expected nothing different.
And he was flying under the radar. That's the point. He stayed neutral. And no one, most of the world did not know what he did with
the human rights bit is going to be very important because Tesla has many business interests in countries where it is quite autocratic. For example, People's Republic of China. So if China put a squeeze on it and say that hand over the identity and location of this human rights activist in exchange for opening more Tesla dealerships.
That's why today's election is so important because it involves this.
I have to say, of all of the things that I've watched him do over the last couple of years, his actions in terms of his own tweet about voting for Republican candidates is the scariest to me. And the reason is because think about what he advocates. He's advocating free speech, and now he's taking the platform that he has spent $44 billion on, was so central to the 2016 campaign with Donald Trump, which leads to him being banned because of the absolute lies, the lies that Donald Trump did. And Donald Trump being banned by Twitter and most reasonable social media platforms because they can't control the free speech that he has because, to your point, he's not accepting the consequence of his lies. Imagine Elon Musk's recommendations in this last 48 hours. He is recommending you vote for Ron DeSantis.
Right.
He is recommending you vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right.
He is advocating you vote for 350 candidates that are running in the United States under the GOP banner that all say Joe Biden is not the legitimate president of the United States. And Elon Musk is encouraging you to vote for them under a banner of free speech. It's just shocking. Now, the proof of it being shocking is who would do something like that? Well, we know Tucker Carlson would. Mm-hmm. We know Fox News would. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine perhaps the only counterpart to an Elon Musk in this same sphere? Mark Zuckerberg. Can you imagine Mark Zuckerberg coming out in Facebook or Instagram saying, vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene in Facebook and encourage all Facebook and Instagram to do that? It's unimaginable. The moment that happens, by the way, American democracy is over, but it's unimaginable. Elon Musk has elevated himself out of South Africa into this moment of Tesla being one of the greatest inventions in history of the electric car, of what he's doing in SpaceX, to insanity. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've watched in the last
Are we
few
looking
days.
Are we looking at Howard Hughes number 2? I mean, you think?
In 2022. Let's move on, and now we're going to queer up our final story tonight by queering up politics. For fake's sake, there's an emphasis in the F word here, and the claim of voter fraud. Today, as you know, is election day, and we are voting and we are already knowing one thing for sure. A gigantic percentage of election deniers will say that the election is fraudulent. This is the first time in American history that the election results are in doubt because so many people say they are. At Queer News Tonight, we launch a new series that we are going to look at in coming months called For Fake's Sake. It's important to understand that even before the polls close today, there is statistically no voter fraud. There's not voter fraud. That's a fact. But that won't stop Trumpsters. Yesterday, an Axios Ipsos poll showed 59% of all GOP voters will blame election fraud for the party's loss, if that's what happens. 39% say it's likely, 19% say it's highly likely. For fake's sake, how do you stop the steal when there's not even a burglar to steal anything? The AP looked at states Trump claimed there were steals: Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Biden won all 6 of these states by more than 311,000 votes. Out of nearly 26 million votes, there were just 475 disputed ballots. In Georgia, for example, 129 were accused of voting twice. Only 4 were found to have actually voted twice. All 4, by the way, voted for Donald Trump. In Pennsylvania, 26 votes were flagged as potentially fraudulent, including a man who voted for himself and then on behalf of his son. By the way, you guessed it, both votes were for Donald Trump. Of the 475 disputed ballots, more than 400 were satisfied by largely Republican secretaries of state, most famously in Arizona and in Georgia. And remember, in Georgia, Trump asked Brad Raffensperger to find 11,000 votes. He couldn't. He didn't. For fake's sake, 86 judges, many appointed by Donald Trump himself, came to the exact same conclusion. There was no evidence of fraud. In fact, all voting irregularities combined amounted to just 0.0000015%. I can't even tell you what that percentage, minuscule number is, of all of the votes cast for President of the United States in 2020. And those same ballots that were illegal for Donald Trump were argued to be legal for other Republicans on the exact same ballot. Truth is not at play here. Here is what Trump-appointed appeals court judge Stefanos Bibos wrote in the major Trump election fraud ruling. Quote, "Calling an election unfair does not make it so. Changes require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here." End quote. That was the conclusion. The LGBTQ plus community already knows all about this. We are targeted in the exact same way. We are painted as groomers, as pedophiles, mutilating children, and embracing furries with cat boxes in school bathrooms. It's all lies. But truth does not seem to be on the ballot during this election cycle. So for fake's sake, today is the first day of a long 2-year battle leading to 2024. So now that Election Day and the fraudulent election fake news will start, our advice to the LGBTQ plus community is to stand back and stand by. For fake's sake. We close our voting today, and already the battle to control the lie begins. It's a lie.
Well, a Republican, and at this point, I think every election that is lost by a Republican, they're just going to blame it on voter fraud. It's a fake election.
That's the point of the whole story.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they go back and forth, and you say it in the story. There's no proof to anything that there was any fraud anywhere. And where it appears there was fraud, it's probably just as guilty for the Republicans who did the fraud as the 1 or 2 Democrats that did the fraud. It's insignificant in the percentage that could change any election. And we know elections are only won by several thousand votes in many cases, but 1 or 2 you're not finding those 7,000 votes all in the same election or same county.
Yeah, and also L's article here was mentioning the Pennsylvania area double votes and such, but in Florida, people in the Villages, the infamous retirement city out in Central Florida, also caught several people voting twice, also for Trump.
Yeah, I think the most important issue of the fraudulent news that are going to come tomorrow. We're sitting here on Election Day. What's going to come tomorrow, and then what's going to be adjudicated for days and weeks ahead in terms of sifting through the election is the reality of truth is not at play. It's just like the January 6th situation.
Well, we're refuting science.
Exactly. Right. Or that COVID is real or
fake news.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's their ploy. It's always their ploy.
It's the way to defeat democracy.
Right. And that's Trump always does is he pushes it out. Yeah. We can't make a decision because I'm going to debate that. I'm going to put it into question. So you can't settle on something because I'm bringing up a new issue, and so the courts keep extending out the final decision.
Yeah. And this also goes to talk about the Elon Musk story with Twitter. This is literally the power play with Twitter and the free speech, quote unquote, but yet there's no consequences to when you say something and your platform or whatever you say is a lie.
Yeah.
Like there's no consequences.
Right.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
Hey everybody, I'm Brandon James from America's Got Talent, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories are about our community and deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
And if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Jamaal L. Starks, Glen Weinzimer, Dr. Bobby Huen, and AJ Stone. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news